Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel. I'm MD General Physician. I'm not a I'm not a cardiologist. I'm still a student. Whatever I'm gathering from internet, different websites, I'm going to share with you. Today we'll be talking on one of the part of cardiovascular system we call as congenital heart disease. So what are congenital heart disease? What are the different types, etc. Why you get all those parts we'll be discussing today. Meaning is very simple. This slide shows you cyanosis. You can see this is cyanosed. This baby is also cyanosed. She is also cyanosed. She has got cyanosis with clubbing. This is also cyanosed and she has been already operated. So you come across cyanotic disease and without cyanosis we call acyanotic heart disease. So basically congenital heart disease means it is a malformation or we call developmental defect present since birth, or it is also described as anatomical abnormalities of the heart that are generally present at birth, which are usually not present and which ranges from asymptomatic to a fatal conditions. They are some of the structural malformation in children, and the percentage is 8 per 1000 birth, and if diagnosed early you can save the child. So congenital heart disease we can divide into cyanotic groups and acyanotic groups. Basically we use three words: left to right shunt are acyanotic groups, right to left shunt are cyanotic groups, and there are some congenital malformation which produces obstruction to the outflow, and that we call as an obstructive congenital heart disease. A shunt is usually because of an abnormal communication between the two chambers or between two blood vessels, and depending upon the size of defect, depending upon the pulmonary pressure or systemic pressure, you will have a shunt. By and large the pulmonary pressure is always less than systemic pressure, so there will be always blood flow from systemic to pulmonary side, that is we call left to right side depending upon the shunt. So there are some terminology which are commonly being utilized, that is congenital cyanotic heart disease, which will be right to left shunt, or we call cyanotic groups where deoxygenated blood is flowing from right side to left side, and by and large in this there is a decreased pulmonary blood flow. While in a congenital acyanotic heart disease group, it is usually blood flow from left side to right side, that is oxygenated blood is coming to deoxy side, and as there is a large quantity of blood coming to the right side, there is an increased blood flow into pulmonary circulation leading to pulmonary congestion. There is a third group what we call as obstructive variety, where you get a valvular stenosis or very rarely you come across valvular regurgitation. There is another group we call as a cardiomyopathy, which can be dilated variety, where there is increase in the size of the ventricular volumes, or there is an hypertrophy of the myocardium producing obstruction at the outflow of valvular structures like pulmonary or aortic, or there is a stiffness in the myocardium leading to restrictive variety we call as restrictive cardiomyopathy. There can be arterial involvement like coarctation of aorta, AV malformation, renal artery stenosis, We also use the word congenital renal artery stenosis, hemangiomas, Berry aneurysms, etc. These are arterial disorders which are present right since birth. We call it a congenital arterial malformations. Or you can have a malposition or malrotation of the heart, producing dextrocardia, mesocardia, levocardia, etc. And this particular mesocardia and dextrocardia can be very frequently associated with congenital heart disease. While levocardia, the percentage of congenital heart disease are very less. While in case of a mesocardia, almost 100%. And in dextrocardia with situs solitus and other groups, Carter-Jenner syndrome, etc. It is almost always associated with congenital heart disease. So these are the new terminology which are being utilized. We already mentioned that we divide into three big groups. We call left to right shunt, or we call acyanotic heart disease, or a pink baby. And we call right to left shunt, or we call cyanotic heart disease or blue baby. And obstructive disease, where usually there is a stenosis or atresia of a valvular structures, particularly outlet obstructions like pulmonary stenosis, aortic stenosis, etc. So in case of left to right shunt, there is an increased pulmonary blood flow, while in case of a right to left shunt, usually there is a decreased pulmonary blood flow, and you can have a cyanotic heart disease which can have a mixed blood flow. So these are the different terms which are being utilized: congenital heart disease with mixed defects. So you can divide into acyanotic, cyanotic groups, and in acyanotic with increased blood flow and obstruction to the ventricular outflow obstructions like coarctation of aorta, aortic stenosis, pulmonary stenosis, and increased blood flow like ASD, VSD, PDA, and atrioventricular canal defects. In cyanotic heart disease group, decreased pulmonary blood flow like tetralogy of Fallot, tricuspid atresia. While in a mixed blood flow, transposition of great vessels or great arteries, total anomalous pulmonary venous drainage, truncus arteriosus, hypoplastic left heart syndromes, where you will have a mixed blood flow. Blood coming from right side and left side, both are flowing, and that we call as a mixed blood flow group. So left to right shunt are commonly ASD, VSD, PDA, and atrioventricular septal defects. Acyanotic heart disease you can divide into two big groups: increased blood flow, normal blood flow. Increased blood flow will give rise to RVH like ASD, and LVH in case of VSD, PDA, and atrioventricular septal defect. By and large, with normal blood flow and RVH, it will be an obstructive disease, which will be pulmonary stenosis or mitral stenosis, which can be congenital, and it will give rise to LVH in case of aortic stenosis and coarctation of aorta. So this is one which will help you with combination of LVH and RVH with increased blood flow and normal blood flow, or we can call decreased blood flow. That will be the way you can differentiate in an acyanotic heart disease group. And in a cyanotic heart disease group with decreased blood flow and RVH combination together, tetralogy of Fallot, ventricular septal defect, critical pulmonary stenosis, what we call as a obstructive lesion to RV outlet, transposition of great arteries, VSD, VSD with pulmonary stenosis. This condition will be producing RVH. While in a interventricular septal defects, tricuspid atresia, pulmonary atresia, will produce, means pulmonary atresia with interventricular septal defect will produce more of LVH. While increased pulmonary blood flow, which is producing RVH, you will have a transposition of great arteries, total anomalous pulmonary venous drainage, outlet obstruction to RV, hypoplastic left side heart, and you can have a combined ventricular hypertrophy, that is RVH with LVH in truncus arteriosus. There is also one term which is being utilized, duct dependent circulation, means if you have got some disorders where patent ductus arteriosus is absolutely necessary for survival of the newborn, we call duct dependent circulation. So pulmonary circulation will be through duct, and that we call as a duct dependent circulation. Duct dependent circulation, that is mainly for pulmonary, is in case of pulmonary atresia with intact ventricular septum, tricuspid atresia, critical pulmonary stenosis, tetralogy of Fallot with severe pulmonary stenosis, Epstein anomaly. In all these conditions, you require blood flow from systemic into pulmonary via a duct, and that is absolutely necessary. And if that is not there, child cannot survive. So duct dependent systemic circulation you will come across in severe coarctation of aorta, obstructive transposition of total anomalous pulmonary venous drainage, tight aortic stenosis, and hypoplastic left heart. In that case, blood will flow from pulmonary into systemic. So that is the one another way you can put them into two different groups. There are some condition which produces left heart malformation, and there are some condition which are there in the right side. We call a right heart malformation. So left heart malformation will be mitral stenosis, mitral valve prolapse, double orifice in mitral valve, parachute of the mitral valve, aortic stenosis, supravalvular, valvular or subvalvular, aortic regurgitation, coarctation of aorta. These are some of the lesions without shunt. On left side malformation, on right side Epstein anomaly, pulmonary stenosis, pulmonary regurgitation is absolutely rare. Idiopathic dilatation of pulmonary valve, that is also very rare. Pulmonary artery branch stenosis, some of the rare conditions which will be on the right side and that will produce RVH. This pulmonary stenosis, pulmonary regurgitation, pulmonary artery, that will produce RVH. While in an Epstein anomaly, it will be combined with ASD, and because of ASD, now blood flow from RA will flow to the left side, and that will be in an Epstein anomaly. So these are some of the conditions. You can put into left to right shunt with a volume overload. We have already mentioned VSD, ASD, PDA, and atrioventricular septal defects. There are some conditions where there is a regurgitation like MR, mitral valve prolapse, tricuspid regurgitation, pulmonary regurgitation, and stenotic groups, which are also acyanotic groups like pulmonary stenosis, aortic stenosis, mitral stenosis, coarctation, IHSS, or we call HOCM, hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, and IHSS is idiopathic hypertrophic subaortic stenosis. And very rare conditions you can come across hypoplastic LV, that is hypoplastic left heart syndrome. In a cyanotic groups, we have already told you increased pulmonary blood flow like transposition of great vessels, truncus arteriosus, total or partial anomalous of pulmonary venous return, single ventricle, double outlet right ventricle, left side hypoplastic heart syndrome. These are all the conditions where there will be increased pulmonary blood flow. And decreased pulmonary blood flow you will come across in case of tricuspid atresia, Fallot's tetralogy, Epstein anomaly, pulmonary atresia, and right side hypoplastic heart syndrome. Here, because of obstruction to the outflow of RV or because of tricuspid atresia, Epstein anomaly, you will have increased blood flow into pulmonary, decreased blood flow into pulmonary circulation. But there will be some condition where you will have a mixed blood flow, that is deoxy and oxy blood are flowing commonly, that is transposition of great vessels, total anomalous pulmonary venous connections, and hypoplastic heart right or left side. This is combined together, the different terms used: shunt left to right, left heart obstruction, right heart obstruction, cardiac arrhythmias, left heart regurgitation, right heart regurgitation, myocardial dysfunctions, pulmonary hypertension, and shunt, which are right to left shunt. These are all pathophysiological classification. If you come across all total groups of congenital heart disease, out of that the ventricular septal defect almost accounts for 25 to 30% of the cases, and in some it may be little more also. Second common is ASD PDA, and then comes tetralogy of Fallot, coarctation of aorta, pulmonary valvular stenosis, etc. And very rare groups: hypoplastic LV, transposition of great vessel, truncus arteriosus, all those are not so common. So if you see all this, truncus arteriosus 1 to 2% only, tricuspid atresia, single ventricle, total anomalous pulmonary venous return, double outlet RV, etc. are very, very rare. They are 1 to 2% only. So if you see among all those, acyanotic heart disease are accounting for almost 71%, while cyanotic heart disease are 21%. And mixed groups or rare groups we call as 8%. So again, showing you cyanotic is only 22%. Acyanotic groups is 68%. Here it is 71%. So almost 70% will be acyanotic groups. And again in acyanotic group, VSD is topmost on the list. Then comes ASD, PDA, tetralogy of Fallot, then pulmonary stenosis, etc. There are some acquired groups which is very common in early childhood, that is Kawasaki disease, rheumatic, tubercular involvement, and collagen disorders. There are some odd conditions in pediatric groups like innocent murmurs, congenital structural heart disease, cardiac arrhythmias and syncopes, pericarditis, myocarditis, endocarditis, rheumatic fever, Kawasaki, etc. Innocent murmur usually disappears as the child grows. They can be a still murmurs or venous hum depending upon the clinical conditions. As far as etiology of congenital heart disease is concerned, 85 to 90% of the time there is no identifiable cause. We call it idiopathic. By and large, it is multifactorial, maybe genetic, maybe environmental. Again, in environmental, you can have unknown etiology in environmental factor. But there are some maternal factors which can be responsible for congenital heart disease, like seizures or person taking anti-seizures drugs, lithium, which is taken for depression, uncontrolled insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus, lupus, we call German measles or rubella, particularly if it occurs in the first trimester of pregnancy. These are some of the contributing factors. By and large, we always say 90% of the time it is unknown etiology. Genetic factors in Down syndromes and many other genetic disorders, the incidence is very high. Maternal infection, we already mentioned rubella in first trimester. Use of some of the drugs, particularly thalidomide, aspirin, we call as anti-epileptic drugs, particularly sodium valproate. Environmental factors, maternal infection, teratogenic drugs, irradiation, X-rays exposure, hypoxia. Commonly, because of a severe hypoxia, it can end up with what we call as a patent ductus arteriosus, chronic lupus, all those conditions. So, in environmental factor, we have already told you some of the teratogenic drugs. Maternal factors we have already mentioned, that if the female is a smoker, alcoholic, and if she develops rubella in first trimester, all those can be risk factors. There are some syndromes which are congenital syndromes like Down syndromes, which is almost quite common, where you get VSD and atrioventricular septal defect quite common. In trisomy 13, VSD and PDA is common. In trisomy 18, VSD and PDA is most common. In Turner, coarctation of aorta, and in Marfan syndrome, aortic aneurysm and mitral valve prolapse. Some of the common I've taken, but there are a lot of different conditions you can go through. D-George syndrome, asplenia syndrome, polysplenia syndromes, congenital rubella, fetal hydrogen sodium. This is because of anti-epileptic drugs, diphenyl hydrogen sodium. Then fetal alcohol syndromes, maternal diabetes, etc. And what are the different diseases which are commonly congenital heart disease because of this particular you can go through. These are all the different conditions we have already mentioned regarding a familial factor, chromosomal anomalies, maternal factor, that is medication, illness, infection, even obesity can also end up with that. So in a maternal factor, rubella, SLE, diabetes mellitus, particularly type 1, drugs like warfarin, fetal heart syndrome or fetal alcohol syndrome, of female consuming alcohol even during pregnancy. Chromosomal abnormality, we have already mentioned 2 or 3 conditions like Down syndromes, Turner, trisomy 18, trisomy 21, etc. Some of the teratogenic conditions like rubella, dilantin, lithium, alcohol, and maternal disease like SLE, diabetes mellitus, type 1 variety, all those. By and large, we know that the normal fetal circulation, it is very simple, explained that blood coming from umbilical vein will go through liver and will come back to inferior vena cava, and also from umbilical vein via ductus venosus it will come to inferior vena cava, from inferior to RA, RV, pulmonary circulation, lung, pulmonary vein, left atrium, from right atrium via foramen ovale it will come to LA, from LA it will go to LV, but also from pulmonary artery via ductus arteriosus it will enter into aorta, and from LV also it will enter into aorta, systemic circulation, umbilical artery, and back to placenta. So this will be the normal fetal circulation. So in fetal there is a patent foramen ovale and there is a ductus arteriosus. The blood is flowing from this, that is from right side, into systemic circulation, and that is how you get that blood flow in fetus. Once the child is born, foramen ovale will close, ductus arteriosus will close. Now blood flow from right ventricle will go into lung directly, that is via pulmonary trunk, pulmonary vein, it will come to LA, LV. This will close, this will close. So this flow will close and this flow will close, and you will have oxygenated blood coming from pulmonary into LA, and then oxygenated blood will be flowing here, and this will be deoxygenated blood. So that will be the change in after birth. So this is what is shown here, that once it comes to pulmonary circulation, and then that particular blood will be coming to LA, LV, and via duct also it will be flowing into systemic circulation, and here via patent foramen ovale it will enter into LA side. So that will be what circulation is here. And once the child is born, this too will close. Very rarely you have got interventricular septal defect which will be showing. This is again a diagrammatic way showing you before birth and this is after birth. You know that now. See here, the foramen ovale is closed and duct is closed here. Duct is closed and foramen ovale is closed. And this will be oxygenated blood. This will be deoxy blood going to the lung, getting oxygenated, and then that oxygenated blood is coming back to LA, and from LA to LV, aorta and systemic circulation. So that will be the way it will be going. I'm skipping over this slide. This is fetal circulation and this is after 8 hours and this is later on. Duct will close, foramen ovale will close, and this is normal circulation. What is being, we have already shown you a slide before that from right atrium RV, pulmonary circulation, left atrium LV into aorta, artery, capillary vein, again by inferior and superior vena cava back into right atrium. So whenever you suspect a person to have a congenital heart disease, first always look whether there is cyanosis or not. If there is a cyanosis, you call cyanotic heart disease. Now in cyanotic heart disease, we have got two groups: decreased pulmonary blood flow, increased pulmonary blood flow. Same way, if a child is acyanotic, there is a murmur. It is either because of increased blood flow or decreased blood flow, or we call normal blood flow. You always utilize that particular clinical finding, and then you take a very good history. You examine a child, you get an X-ray test, you do a echo, you do a electrocardiogram, etc. So in a newborn child, it will be extremely difficult to get any history, but clinical examination, if it shows you cyanosis, further advanced stage, then you might see a child with hypoxic spell, particularly in a tetralogy of Fallot. You might see cardiac arrhythmias like supraventricular tachycardias, some CNS finding, etc. You get a maternal history, you have a family history, have a good physical examination, that is blood pressure, pulse, respiration, JVP, cardiovascular system examination, inspection, palpation, percussion, auscultation, all those should be done. Have a good examination of respiratory system, look for liver, spleen to find out presence of congestive heart failure, look for edema, cyanosis, clubbing, etc. These are all the different symptoms with which the child can present. By and large, we don't see syncope as a sign in a newborn. Seizures you can see. This will be after a child grows. You can have child complaining of syncopal episodes or fainting episodes, etc. So it will depend upon how severe the disease is, and depending upon that the person will present with the different symptoms. There are certain clues to a newborn child. If there is a feeding difficulty, if there is a respiratory distress, tachypnea, there is cyanosis, clubbing, apneic smell, there is a persistent tachycardia, excessive sweating, frequent respiratory tract infection, orthopnea, exercise intolerance, failure to thrive, growth retardation, developmental defects or developmental delay, all this will tell you that the child is having congenital heart disease. Congenital cyanotic heart disease is very easy to identify because at the birth you will detect cyanosis. But first you will have to differentiate from other causes of cyanosis from congenital cyanotic heart disease. So try to differentiate that. If you give oxygen and if there is no improvement in oxygenation or cyanosis, It is more in favor of a congenital cyanotic heart disease group. Then have a good physical examination. Look for vital data, cardiovascular, respiratory, alimentary system examination, CNS examination. Look for presence of murmur. Look for hepatomegaly, splenomegaly, basal crackles, etc. So there may be no cyanosis, mild cyanosis or significant cyanosis, and accordingly you can approach a cyanotic heart disease group, which can be severe variety where you will have a significant cyanosis with clubbing, while mild cyanosis may not have clubbing at all, and you try to identify those groups. Then functional approach, these are the different groups depending upon the presence of murmur. In acyanotic heart disease, try to identify VSD, ASD, pulmonary stenosis, all those groups. Also, in acyanotic heart disease, patent ductus arteriosus, coarctation of aorta, you can identify very easily. If you want to differentiate between left to right shunt and right to left shunt will be all cyanotic. There will be always decrease in pulmonary circulation by and large. There will be polycythemia and there will be very high chance of paradoxical embolization. While in case of a left to right shunt, increased pulmonary circulation, decreased systemic circulation, there will be pulmonary arterial hypertension and persistent cyanosis in late stage because of reversal of the shunt. This is how you approach in a cyanotic heart disease group, in an early stage, in a late stage. By and large, TOF will be very common in a late stage, and look for pulmonary congestion and oligemia. In oligemia condition, TOF will be most common. Then comes pulmonary atresia, Epstein anomaly, tricuspid atresia, those groups. While in a plethora group, that is increased pulmonary blood flow, transposition of great vessels, truncus arteriosus, this is because of mixed blood flow, total anomalous pulmonary venous drainage, etc. X-ray may help you if you get an egg shape of cardiovascular shadow, that is transposition of great arteries. Then figure 8 in case of total anomalous pulmonary venous drainage, square shape in truncus arteriosus, boot shape in TOF, box shape in Epstein anomaly, or almost it fills up the entire chest. Very huge cardiomegaly from one end to second end, and large right atrium in pulmonary atresia and tricuspid atresia. In those groups, you will have a big right atrium. So after doing a good examination, inspection, look for cyanosis clubbing, palpate, look for liver, spleen, JVP, auscultate for different murmurs, systolic, diastolic, etc. and try to identify innocent murmur or it is a defect which is producing a murmur. And as far as investigation is concerned, main important investigation again is history and good physical examination followed by X-ray chest, ECG, echo, and then last is cardiac catheterization. By and large, from ECG, echo, and X-ray chest, diagnosis is almost nearly confirmed. And if it is still not identifiable, then you can go for cardiac catheterization to find out the exact defects. So those will be the 4 investigation: X-ray, ECG, echo, and cardiac catheterization. So in a chest X-ray, there are some peculiar X-ray which can help you out. There are some typical X-rays which will tell you regarding, so X-ray chest can give you a lot of idea regarding the mal rotation like levocardia, mesocardia, dextrocardia, situs solutus, situs inversus, situs ambiguous. Then chamber enlargement can be identified. Size of aorta you can identify. dextro or levo position of aorta you can identify, increased pulmonary vasculature, decreased pulmonary perfusion or decreased pulmonary vasculature, and normal you can identify. Extracardiac structures like rib erosions, vertebra, diaphragm, lung parenchyma, etc. Also you can identify ventricular hypertrophy, right or left ventricular hypertrophy you can identify on ECG, axis you can identify, and that can also give you a little idea regarding which side defect is more, right side or left side. Axis, you can look at chamber enlargement, all those. And then if you still can't identify by echo, etc., you can go for catheter, you can go for nuclear studies like PET scan, SPECT scan. Then you can combine MRI, you can use MRI CT, radionucleotide study like SPECT scan or PET scan. All those can be utilized to confirm exact defect and the severity of defects. You can use spin echo, gradient echo, velocity, encoded echo, etc. There are multiple different types of modification in echocardiography. X-ray chest, I've already told you, you can identify the size, shape of the heart. You can look at the pulmonary congestion, oligemia, plethora, etc. Bony rib notching. ECG we have already mentioned, axis, hypertrophy of different chambers, cardiac catheterization. And as far as management is concerned, palliative procedures initially, followed by we call as a invasive, non-invasive method of closure of those defect shunts, which we call as a transcatheter repair or a closure. Very rarely nowadays open heart surgery are required. Nowadays there is an era of we call as a minimal invasive surgery, very commonly done by catheter closures. Then in those particular group you will have to give prophylaxis for infective endocarditis, and if already person has got infective endocarditis you will have to manage infective endocarditis. A child can be vaccinated for some of the infection because they will be very common in congenital heart disease. So vaccination can be done as a prophylactic measures. So management will consist of treatment of heart failure, prevention of recurrent respiratory tract infection, maintained weight, hemoglobin, treatment of infective endocarditis and prophylaxis for infective endocarditis. And then you can go for surgical intervention which can be invasive, non-invasive. So vaccination should be done particularly for pneumococcal influenza vaccine. It is very, very important. MMR vaccines should be also utilized. By and large, prevention should be done at before pregnancy. So precaution in mother is very important. Stop smoking, stop alcohol, stop all the drugs we call teratogenic drugs. So drugs should be avoided. Irradiation should be avoided. Prevention for viral infections should be taken care. Folic acid helps a lot. So all those can be done. So there are a lot of things which you can prevent. In mother, avoid ACE inhibitors, some of the drugs which is teratogenics like sodium valproate, anti-epileptic drugs, dilantin, etc. should be prevented. And if there is a strong family history, then go for genetic studies and rule out possibility of genetic disorders in mother. And you can also go for what we call as a amniotic fluid investigations to find out if there is any genetic disorders in fetus, and then you can decide according to that. These are all the different devices which you can utilize in a newborn. You can have a open repair, you can have a balloon valvoplasty in a stenotic lesions, balloon atrial septostomy you can go for in some lesions where it will be very helpful. Nowadays, there is availability of a robotic surgery, which is again becoming a, we call as a minimal invasive surgery, etc. All this you can utilize. So balloon dilatation, stents, radio frequency ablations, then occlusive procedures with different types of devices. Arrhythmias you can treat by radio frequency ablations, and intervention during a fetal stage by amniotic fluid examination. There are a lot of complications which can be there, like Eisenmenger syndrome, congestive heart failure, repeated respiratory tract infection, retarded growth, cardiac cachexia, infective endocarditis, cardiac arrhythmias, and some of the severe congenital cyanotic heart disease can die very early if not diagnosed. Or complicated congenital cyanotic heart disease, the death rate is very, very high. So I end my lecture here. I hope this will be introductory lecture as far as congenital heart disease. In further lecture, we'll be discussing on congenital cyanotic heart disease and acyanotic heart disease group. So I hope this will be very helpful to you. So go through that at your leisure time.